Good evening. Welcome to Trinity for the Trinity Songbook. We're delighted you're here. I'm Peter Danjo, the rector, and on behalf of the clergy and congregation, we welcome you here tonight for an evening of song and story that will enthrall us all. And I'm so glad you're here. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce John Lucas, our narrator for the evening. Thank you, John.
Good evening. We're all glad to be here. The first thing I want to say is that if you want to take pictures or video or put anything on Facebook, it's absolutely okay. We would encourage that. So that's really good. The other thing I want to do is compliment Kendall Kelly, because this has been our poster that she designed, and I just wanted to give her a little round of applause. And to Kendall. Everything you see tonight is home cooked, so that's kind of neat. But what was interesting was when we were going through some pictures, we noticed this picture to the other side of it, and this was a coincidence of all things. She did not have that picture when she did that picture, so we thought that was kind of interesting how sometimes history and art do come together. Tonight we're going to take a journey. It's going to be a journey of the Trinity Episcopal Church. Hard to believe, but Trinity will be founded this year 175 years ago, right where you all are sitting. And very unusual and pretty miraculous at times that it was here, fought through a lot of things, but it's here. And we're here tonight to celebrate through some narrative and some slides and some songs. So that's the journey we're going to take. So sit back, relax, and just enjoy what you're going to hear tonight. There she is, 1843. In a third-story room on the south side of the Lower Market Street, now Park Place in Covington, there grew the interest that was led in a meeting on November 24th, 1842, with 14 persons present. The parish was formally organized under the name Trinity Parish, and on December 16th of that same year, a lot for which where you are sitting was purchased from a Mr. Jefferson Phelps for the grand sum of $350. Who were the 14 people? The most famous one is Thomas Bird, and there's a plaque on the wall, I believe it may be that plaque, that talks about Thomas Bird, but he was from London, England, and he was an apothecary by trade in Covington. He had the initial idea to establish Trinity Church. Not only did he have the idea, but Mr. Bird served on numerous functions in the church for many years, including the vestry. In January 1847, Dr. Bird saved this parish from a financial catastrophe by mortgaging his own home that was located at 7th and Greenup Streets. And the entire debt at that time was $1,200. Some of the other 14 founders were some names you may have heard through Northern Kentucky. Was George Maris Southgate of the famous Southgate family of Campbell County, John McNichol, who owned the Covington rolling mill and manufactured iron into nails and railroad tracks and bars. John White Stevenson, famous politician who was governor of Kentucky in the 1880s, 1870s. Jackson Sparrow was a baker. John Wesley Venerable was an accomplished local artist. And Calvin Littlefield, a name I'll bring back up in a minute, the Littlefield name, was a bricklayer. And then finally, George Withers was a tobacco merchant. So as you can see, Trinity was a diverse group of founders, just like it is today. But they got it started, and through the grace of God and good luck, it's here today. Saying that, let's get started with the music. The first performance tonight will be by the Trinity Church Brass Ensemble. So they are ready to go. So take it away, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on our journey, our next piece of history is about William Gibson Pendleton, who was a rector of this church in the 1937 flood. If you were sitting in these pews on January of 1937, your feet weren't wet, but it was awful close. Awful close. Reverend Pendleton, as you can see by this picture, Reverend Pendleton helped the parishioners during the Great Flood of 1937. And it was a flood of biblical proportions. It was 28 feet above flood stage, and the water, if you can't tell exactly from that picture, came right up to the steps out there. On one hand, you would say the church was very lucky, and it was, that the water from the Ohio River did not get into here, but it destroyed everything below in the basement. So it was a big catastrophe from a financial point of view for Trinity Church at that time. Reverend Pendleton wrote an autobiography later on, and he talked about the river that rose to 80 feet, which was the height of the river at that time, and about Trinity being underwater in its basement and all the damage that was caused. But he also talked about the fact that people needed help. So many people lost everything in the 37 flood, especially in this part of town and lower Cincinnati and all the way up the Licking River and the Ohio River, all the way down. It was, like I said, it was a biblical proportion. But he gave a story of one in Covington where one of our parishioners was very ill, and so he got into a rowboat and he rowed down to her house, up to her porch, and when he entered, he saw that she had piled all of her coal, which people used coal then, in the living room, and all of her furniture was stacked up on top of the piano and other places. So he saved her, helped save the house, and that was just one of the many heroic efforts that so many put on in that time in January of 1937. If you were alive, anybody I've talked to in 1937 never forgot it, never forgot it. Our next piece has a bit of water in it too. It's going to be performed by Shannon Gemeinhardt, accompanied by John Deaver, the prelude of Shall We Gather at the River. nice was that? Beautiful. Beautiful. Kate Perry Mosier, incredible lady. She was one of the most interesting women in the history of Trinity Episcopal Church, in the opinion of many. Before Kate became a member of Trinity, she spent time in the Midwest during the Civil War. And a little point about the Civil War is that here in Covington, you were sitting right here on the border of the North and the South. And there was little doubt that this church had people that were for the South and people that were for the North, because that's just the way it was back then. And I can't even imagine how difficult it must have been at times when the messages were coming from the war zone about who was there and who lost their lives in that. A terrible, terrible time in our history. And this church survived that, and I'm sure it had to be an incredible period for people sitting in these pews again you're sitting in tonight. During a cold month in December 1863, the Confederates were being held, some Confederates were being held prisoners at a camp in Rock Island, Illinois. And the conditions were horrific, as they were in most Civil War prison camps, both in the South and in the North. Kate Mosier was there, and she got involved into the prison camp, and she helped care for the Confederates and became very passionate about them, and in fact even helped some of them escape. So this is the kind of lady that Kate Perry Mosier was. After the war, a few years after, she comes to Covington and she becomes an artist. And her carvings, she was a great wood carver, and her carvings appeared at the Centennial Exposition in 1876, which was no small feat because this is the 100-year celebration of the United States of America in Philadelphia. This was really the first World's Fair for the United States in 1876. And later on, her work was exhibited at the World Exposition in 1893. And in the late 1880s, she carved the panels for the altar with the help of the other women of the parish. If you look around, various carvings back here and various carvings over the church, and that was the work done by the ladies of Trinity that were led by Kate Perry Mosier. While we're talking about carvings and that, I wanted to take a moment just to talk too about the windows of Trinity. If you look around, again, many of us have been here for years and we're accustomed to these beautiful windows, but if you are here for the first time, they're an absolute treasure. The window in the back, it's called the Methodist window, which because it was purchased from a Methodist church when the legend is they couldn't afford it, but we took it over. The famous Katie Hunt window up here, which this time of night I'm not used to seeing, and they're just beautiful even tonight with this light, what we have that was done in her memory when she died at a young age. The various windows that are identified with the people who were here before us in the church. And last but not least, the St. Michael's window, which is over here. St. Michael's window is special. It's special because it's a national treasure. It was done by Louis Comfort Tiffany, whose father owned a little jewelry store called Tiffany's, and we've heard about that. But Louis was not in the jewelry business. He was an artist, and he became famous as a leading stained glass designer of an Art Nouveau period of the art movement. He submitted his works in 12 public expositions between 1893 and 1926 and received gold medals in the Grand Prix of all of them except in 1893, where he only received 44 medals there. Not only did he design lamps, the Tiffany lamps that we've heard about, but he also designed beautiful stained glass windows. If you go to the Art Museum in Cincinnati, you'll see 4 windows over there from the Episcopal Diocese of Southern Ohio St. Michael's Church. They were sold to the Art Museum years ago because they were in bad condition, and the Art Museum took them over, and they were in need of repair. We're very fortunate. We haven't had to sell our window, and I don't plan on selling it. And our window is in good shape, and the congregation is very proud to have such a window. The window is obviously behind where the choir sings, and it is dedicated to the memory of Howard Lewis Lovell and Howard Jr. on All Saints' Day in 1902. The window was designed in the famous studio of Louis Tiffany in New York City, and again, it's a fine example of his style. In the foreground is St. Michael, the archangel, the leader of the archangels, and the guardian of the souls of men. He is arrayed in full armor, bearing a sword and a dagger, and he is wearing a gold robe with IHS etched on the front breastplate. IHS denotes the first 3 letters for the Greek name for Jesus. Now, let's go back to Kate for a moment, because a very special story about Kate. Around the time that Kate was carving the altars, her and her husband William did an amazing thing. They took in a young African-American boy named Hannibal. Hannibal became a faithful organ pumper at Trinity for many years and never missed a church service. He was loved by all the parishioners of Trinity, and in 1927, the vestry sent a letter of thanks to Hannibal Mosier for his many years of service, and the Women's Auxiliary Group later on paid for Hannibal's funeral. Kate Mosier taught, again, Hannibal how to carve, and he carved a beautiful stole box. A stole is a liturgical vestment worn by the clergy for various Christian denominations during a church service, and he made this to be presented at Trinity in Christmas 1919. So a story about Hannibal. Our next song is basically 2 songs, 2 Civil War songs, and they're going to be sung by Justin Gabbard and Audrey Wallstrom. Can't pass this up without a word about Justin. He was raised here at Trinity, and I saw him grow up and grow into a young man, and then he's become a priest, and had the honor of his first baptism was my grandson. So I got to get that plug in, Justin. Absolutely. They're going to sing 2 songs from the Civil War era, which is appropriate for what I just talked about. Lorena and the famous song, Our Ali. Thank you.
Slowly by Lorena, the snow is on the grass again. The sun's low down the sky, Lorena. The frost gleams where the flowers have been. We're going to sing this in the key it was written in. Better to sing the key that I can sing it in. The years creep slowly by, Lorena. The snow is on the grass again. The sun's low down the sky, Lorena. The frost gleams where the flowers have been. But my heart beats on as warmly now as when the summer days were long. The sun can never dip so low, or down affection's cloudless sky. 100 months have passed, Lorena, since last I held that hand in mine, and felt the pulse beat fast, Lorena, though mine beat faster far than thine.
100 months was flowering May, when up the hilly slope we climbed to watch the dying of the day and hear the distant church bells chime. We loved each other
dust the years are gone. I'll not call up their shadowy foes. I'll say to them, watch years sleep on, nor heed life's belting storms. It matters little now, Lorena. The past is in eternal past. Our hands will soon lie low, Lorena. Life's tide is ebbing out so fast. There is a future, oh thank God, of life. This is no small accord. 'Tis dust to dust beneath the sun, but there, up there, 'tis heart to heart. As the blackbird in the spring neath the willow tree sat and piped, I heard him sing praise of Orly. Orly, Orly, maid of golden hair. Sunlight came along with thee and swallows in the air.
I blushed, the rose was born, music when you spake. Through thine azure eye, the morn sparkling seemed to break. Orly, Orly, birds of crimson wing, never songs have sung to me as in that sweet, sweet spring. Orly, the birds may flee, and willows golden hair swing through winter fitfully on the stormy air. Yet if that blue eyes I see, gloom will soon depart. For to me, sweet Orly, is sunshine through the dark. When the mistletoe was green midst the winter snows, sunshine in thy face was seen, kissing lips of rose. Orly, Orly, take my golden ring. Love and light return with thee, and swallows in the spring.
Cute couple, huh? Next, we're going to talk about Worth May. Many of us remember Worth. This is what Worth May's daughter, Catherine Marshall, had to say about her father. His focus was on a person's relationship to the Lord. He believed that all people should be treated with love, dignity, and respect. He was an active member of the Northern Kentucky Commission on Religion and Human Rights, and he was Trinity's first Afro-American family, the Hawkers, became active communicants during the early 60s. While being concerned with the issues of the time, Worth never forgot his primary concern, that of being a caring pastor for us, and here were some of the issues that he was involved in. Some in the church were concerned that an African American youth attending a summer service project at Trinity during the 1960s and 1970s, which were turbulent times, was an issue. Since there were families who lived in downtown Covington, Worth May found these summer programs to be invaluable to serving the community. These projects included music, sewing, arts, crafts, and hammer and nail type of things. It was necessary for the staff to be trained, and they were trained by the mayors of Covington, Ellesmere, the NAACP chairman, school teachers, caseworkers, social workers, and priests in the area. When the Book of Common Prayer was undergoing trial use in the Episcopal Church, a large number of church members were seriously questioning its theological implications. They charged that the basis of the traditional Episcopal Church was being threatened. The Standing Liturgical Commission on the Episcopal Church championed the new book and chose to ignore the charges. Final adoption of the book as the Church's one and only authorized liturgy was realized in 1979, and we still use it today. Reverend May was also involved in the ordination of women. This photo is of the first woman deacons ordained to the priesthood in July 1974. This ordination was known as the Ordination of the Philadelphia 11. The bishops claimed obedience to the Spirit justified their actions to ordain women. The ensuing controversy highlighted divisions evidenced in the church over this issue. But in 1976, the General Convention approved the ordination of women to the priesthood in the Episcopal Church. After the 1976 vote, most dioceses accepted the ordination of women, and the ordination of women proceeded at a rapid rate. Next, I would like to present Mason Kelly, accompanied by John Deaver. And Mason's going to sing two songs, one, as you can see on your program, from The Sound of Music, and the other one from Les Miserables. Mason.
In the darkness, a fugitive running, fallen from God, fallen from grace. God be my witness, I never shall yield till we come face to face, till we come face to face. He knows his way in the dark. Mine is the way flame, the sword. Stars in your multitudes, scarce to be counted, filling the darkness with order and light. You are the sentinels, silent and sure, keeping watch in the night, keeping watch in the night. You know your place in the sky, you hold your course and your aim, and each in your season returns and returns, and is always the same. And if you fall as Lucifer fell, you fall in flame. And so it has been, for so it is written on the doorways to paradise, that those who falter and those who fall must pay the price. Lord, let me find him, that I may see him safe behind bars. I will never rest till then. This I swear by the stars.
That was something. And here's something, Reverend Joe Pennington. Let's talk about Father Joe for a moment. Reverend Dana Hardwick, who was here at Trinity along with Joe, once gave Deacon Paul Gaskin the following advice: keep your eyes on Joe and be prepared for anything. We all can testify to that over the 20 years that he was here. Joe Pennington began his ministry at Trinity in November 1989, and by the second Sunday, I swear, he knew everybody's name when they took communion. That was Joe. One of his first priorities was the principal structure of Trinity. We all remember that we're here with Joe telling us one Sunday that the red carpet that went up and down the aisles here was so awful that no one would have it in their own homes. And he said we could not have a new organ until the floor was fixed, because the organ could end up in the basement. We had structural problems here at Trinity. Hard to believe today, but they were there. So this began the first and second renovations of Trinity that occurred in the early 90s. And later, Joe even advocated for the elevator that many of us enjoy at times, and he found the funding for this. Joe also did not back down from social issues. However, he didn't use the pulpit for his personal opinions. But if something needed to be said, Joe would say it. As some of you might remember, the Westboro Church picketed outside on our sidewalks one Sunday morning, and I remember walking through those pickets. It was pretty ugly. But Joe made sure to instruct everybody to just ignore them, because what they wanted was not be ignored, and we did ignore them that day, and they went away. Joe and Gil were also instrumental in encouraging our parish to contribute to the Heifer International Fund, and there are many plaques on the walls in the hall that testify to that. The surprises and laughters during Joe's ministry continued for over 20 years as we worshiped God together. And in March of 2010, a festive celebration was held to wish Joe and Gil the best and to thank them for their 20 years of service to Trinity Episcopal Church. That's Joe Pennington. Next, I would like to introduce Carl Litzenmeyer. And Carl's going to do a song, a bit of a jazz tune, called My Attorney, Bernie.
with my attorney, Bernie. I'm impressed with his influential friends. He's got very big connections, so I follow his directions. Bernie knows his way around, and so I always do what Bernie recommends. I am blessed with my attorney, Bernie. I'm impressed with the way he runs the store. He's got red leg seasoned boxes and an office full of foxes. It's amazing the different things your average guy may need a lawyer for. Bernie tells me what to do. Bernie lays it on the line. Bernie says we sue, we sue. Bernie says we sign, we sign. I'm in touch with my attorney, Bernie. In a clutch, he can speed right to the scene. And if I'm locked up in the jail with just one phone call for my bail, he says to call his club, collect, or deal directly with his answering machine. When I'm dying with my attorney, Bernie, then I'd whine from the rail imported rack. That's 'cause Bernie is a purist, not your polyester tourist. Bernie waves the glass around a while, then takes a sip and always sends it back. Bernie tells me what to do. Bernie lays it on the line. Bernie says we sue, we sue. Bernie says we sign, we sign. I admire my attorney, Bernie. I admire any guy who knows his stuff. Sure, we blew a couple ventures with that counterfeit debentures, but you win a few, you lose a few. Like Bernie says, you keep on hanging tough. Thanks to you, my attorney, Bernie. Thanks to you, I'm considered well-to-do. Sure, I made out like a bandit, just exactly like you planned it. But like Murray, my accountant, told me yesterday, I owe it all to you. Bernie tells me what to do. Bernie lays it on the line. Bernie says we sue, we sue. Bernie says we sign, we sign. On the dotted line.
Bernie. Next, we're going to talk about someone who is here tonight, Jim Swearingen. And Jim, as you can see, there's some very interesting pictures there of Jim. Kenner became a household name in the toy industry in the 1970s and in the 1980s. Everybody heard of the Easy Bake Oven and bought one. And everybody heard of Play-Doh. I still play with it with my grandkids. So what happens? When Kenner and the makers of Star Wars films get together over 40 years ago, you get Jim as a member of Trinity Church involved. When Jim was a lead designer for Kenner and read the Star Wars script, he told his boss that his design team had to create these toys. Not only were these three-quarter figures of Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker popular, but they became an industry standard. Today, Jim still designs toys on a consulting basis and attends toy conventions and is helping start a new company called Hooray! And that's Jim, Kenner Toys. Very impressive. Now I would like to introduce Austin Hyder, and as you can see from the program, the Star Wars theme continues. Austin. standing O. Well. Here at Trinity, we have all kinds of talent, as you see. Did you find yourself doing this? I did. I was getting a little nervous. Boy, that's don't try it at home. Okay. That was great, Austin. Great. Next, a picture that we all recognize. I don't have to introduce who this fellow is in our history. It's John Deaver. And John is a blessing to this church. We are grateful how he shares his gift with us as the director of music. He is our Pied Piper. And through his leadership and vision, he has created a wonderful musical program and tradition here. It's clear that John, and we know this, is responsible for attracting and retaining parishioners over 37 years. Each week he creates a sacred space for us to worship. He's celebrating 37 years with us this September and is the fourth musical director at Trinity since 1890, a span of 127 years. Impressive. He's a native of Virginia, and he came to Cincinnati to study the organ at the University of Cincinnati College of Conservatory of Music, where he received his doctorate in musical arts. Our church was fortunate enough to get to hear him perform on our outstanding organ every Sunday. We're very lucky. He leads the volunteer choir and the brass ensemble and is part of the liturgy team. No one knows hymns and their histories like John. He has an incredible knack for choosing the right piece of music for each lesson, service, celebration, and feast day. John has given a lot of his heart and a lot of his time and has made a significant impact on our faith community. During his tenure, he started the all-volunteer choir and inspired the congregation to buy a Steinway piano, which is sitting right there. This enabled John to start a monthly concert series called the Midday Musical Menu, which has become a beloved tradition in Covington and in northern Kentucky. He chaired the organ committee and enabled us to purchase the magnificent organ you see behind me here and you're about to hear, and started 3 evensong services each year and has commissioned 8 pieces of music for choir and instruments. He has opened our doors to a host of local musical groups such as the Cincinnati Boys Choir and Cincinnati Catacostic. With everything John has done these past 37 years, he has always been rooted in his love for God and the church. And it is now a great pleasure that we get to listen to John and share again his musical talents. John will be performing Preludium in G minor that was composed by Dietrich Buxtehude. John.
Thank
blessing to have John here. Next, we're going to have the choir perform, and they're coming up now, and we'll get ready. This will take just a second. One of the interesting things I was thinking when John was playing the organ, which is a beautiful instrument that was put here in 1992, was when I came here in '79, the pipes for the organ were right there in the octagon, and that was all closed off. There was no entrance there. The entrance was there, but you never saw it. It was all pipes, just basically a wall that covered that. So I came to church here from '79 to 1992, and then when they did the renovation, and there were bobcats right in the middle where you all were sitting, putting in new floors and new walls and everything and that. And when we all came back in here, because it was closed off, because it was a construction site, and saw this beautiful octagon opened up for the very first time in modern times, it was truly unbelievable. And then the other fun part was the organ was hand-built right there. I think the gentleman came and built the organ right there. So again, a rather remarkable piece, the organ, and along with it, John, to supervise every little piece that was put in that organ, I'm sure. John, you ready? We're going to perform, they're going to perform two pieces as noted in your program. Thank you. Our choir. The second piece you heard, the end of our exploring, is a special piece. It was commissioned by John Deaver in celebration of his 35 years at Trinity, with the Trinity Choir. Just thought it was important to mention that. And next we're going to get prepared for three pieces that will be sung by Jack Cox, who's a tenor in our choir, three Elizabethan pieces, be accompanied by John. And so when they get set up here in just a second, we will be ready. Jack?
Music both
Your minds back to 1882. That was the year when Trinity Episcopal Church, along with several other Protestant congregations here in Covington, founded the Covington Protestant Children's Home, now 135 years later known as the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky, and we've had a wonderful relationship over those years. So when the CEO, Rick Worth, who's a parishioner here, emailed me the other day and said, "I want the clergy of Trinity Episcopal Church to participate in the Duffel Shuffle," I said yes without reading the email. And in the end, just Justin Gabbard and I could be present on the day. Mother Anissa Willis and Deacon Joe Arbachta were not able to be there, and I think they will be glad for it, because I want to show you the result of the Duffel Shuffle, which should be up on your screen in just a minute. Used to this computer, so just bear with us.
Children in out-of-home care spend a third of their lives transitioning from one place to another. And way too often in these quick moments of transition, they have to throw their belongings into trash bags. The Duffel Shuffle is creating... Donate them to the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky and other group residential and foster care organizations supporting kids who are on the journey to find their forever homes. If you're ready to get involved, here's how to do the Duffel Shuffle. Step 1, stuff your duffel. First things first, buy a new duffel bag. Stuff it with approved items like socks, twin bed sheets and bed pillows, personal hygiene items, gift cards, even art supplies. Step 2, shuffle and share. From the dorky, any, and all shuffle dance moves. Film your best shuffling self and share it with the world on social media using the hashtag Duffel Shuffle. And just like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, we encourage you to challenge a friend at the end of your video to do the Duffel Shuffle. Step 3, Duffel Drop. Now that you've shown us what you're made of, be sure to visit duffelshuffle.org to find an approved duffel drop location around Greater Cincinnati. If shuffling's not your style, you can donate online. And we want this city to shuffle. But ultimately, we hope the Duffel Shuffle is the first step you take to get more involved by donating, volunteering, or becoming a foster parent yourself.
We were watching this morning at the Children's Home, and I noticed that on the second time I appear on the screen, the word that's going across at the bottom is dorky. I thought that was very fitting. Rick, come on up.
Hello, everyone, and I just want to say a word of thanks to parish leadership. When I heard tonight that the free offerings, the collections that were going to be made were coming to Children's Home, I'm just very touched by that, and I hope all of you hear that appreciation. When I woke up this morning, I thought that the most exciting thing that was going to happen, the most interesting thing, was going to be hosting the governor's wife, who visited the Children's Home this morning along with the cabinet secretary for Health and Family Services. But that was before I saw Austin Hyder and the two things are a little more interesting. So maybe three things that are on my mind for our recognition tonight of the parish's 175th anniversary. Father Peter already mentioned the Children's Home of Northern Kentucky is 135 years old this year. The Roebling Suspension Bridge. The Roebling Suspension Bridge is turning 150, and the parish is turning 175. And all of them have one thing in common. Well, there's maybe more than one. Amos Schinkel was the president of the bridge company. He donated, Gina tells me, to Trinity Episcopal Church, and he also started Children's Home of Northern Kentucky. We have that in common, this historic Northern Kentucky figure. But there's another thing I was thinking about that these three things have in common, and that's risk. So Children's Home of Northern Kentucky is about risk. There are those who say, you're going to bring in what kind of kids dealing with what kind of issues, and you're going to put them in our backyard? Really? Not in my backyard. There are some who see that type of care as a risk. When Amos Schinkel founded the bridge company, there was a huge outcry. People did not want the Roebling Suspension Bridge. They did not want it because it was going to interfere with commerce and the farriers and those who ran barges. They thought it was going to be an end to the boating industry, and they believed that the bridge was going to become a highway for slaves to escape the South into the freedom of the North. And so there was a huge outcry. The legislators finally said, great, Amos, you can build the bridge, but it cannot connect to any major road on either side. You ever realize that? But then there's the parish here, Trinity, which is also about risk, isn't it? It's the kind of risk where the baptized faithful, nourished by the Word and by sacraments, by the Eucharistic celebration every week, are willing to lay down their lives for the sake of another, to become a bridge to a better future. And on that note, I thank all of you for taking that kind of risk.
Don't go anywhere. I challenge Trinity Episcopal Church to the Duffel Shuffle. You don't have to come up here and dance, but go watch the video again and follow the instructions. These are for you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Rick. Our next performance tonight is by Elise Hyder, mezzo-soprano, who will be accompanied by John Deaver. Elise? Moving on with our journey, we would be remiss if we did not talk about Judy Clemens. Judy and her family arrived at Trinity in the 1960s, and we lost Judy a few years ago, but her presence is always with us. Her family is still active in the parish, and Judy was a woman of all seasons in this parish. She was an educator by profession, and she taught us all something about life at one time or another over the years. At Trinity, she was an organizer of our Soup Sunday program, our infamous and famous Domain Weekend Retreat, and all kinds of social and religious events for the church and its members. Judy was everywhere there was a need. We loved her so, and she loved us. She was always a person who had time to listen to you and to give you advice and comfort. And tonight, it is with pleasure that I get to introduce the Trinity Bluegrass Group, which was one of her favorites, and her son Butch is here tonight to perform with them. They will perform two songs. The second song, Prayer Bells from Heaven, was one of Judy's favorites. Gentlemen. Valley this weekend if you want to go down there. Or, and this is the truth, they'll be appearing at the Cathedral Domain this September, so you need to think about going because a little bit of picking goes on down there. Oh, well, we're going to the Globe after too, yes. I will. Just a couple more things, then we'll go to the Globe. These guys are ready. I want to stay with them tonight. Trinity's about worship. We talked about that tonight, and we got a couple slides up there that just shows you different pictures of the worship that we do have at Trinity. And we've had over the years, like I said, it's been a long and winding road for 175 years, but worship is what it's about. And currently at Trinity, we have our rector, Peter Danjo. When Peter came to Trinity, he brought with him a wealth of knowledge, experience, new and exciting ways to look at Trinity Church as an Episcopal church and a liturgy. For example, how beautiful was it this past Easter Sunday when the focal point of the flower cross that hung right here over the altar gave us beauty and a sign of the resurrection. You don't just come to Trinity Church with Peter as the rector. You come and experience church with Peter as the rector. And Peter, we're thankful for that. Thank you. And one last thing about Trinity is we do worship, but we also have a little fun over the years, and we've all known that many of us have been a part of that. And just a couple of slides, I think, to demonstrate that it is a fun place to come to, with the domain and the carnival and different things like that. The Bible school, you can see the slide there, a very big event. And some other things, the Garden Mart, the parish picnic, and obviously Shrove Tuesday. And some people will never run for governor because of that picture. So this is why I'm up here. This is it, as far as I'm going to go. Okay, thank you for coming tonight. We have one final song we want to talk about, the grand finale. Obviously, My Old Kentucky Home. The words are there for you to sing tonight. If you're from Kentucky, you know the words. If you're from Ohio, bear with us and deal with it. It's going to be fun. It was written by Stephen Foster. Just a word about Stephen Foster, because you don't hear a lot about him, but he was the John Lennon of the 1800s. He wrote over 200 songs, passed away at age 37. And he lived in Cincinnati, Ohio for a while. A lot of people don't know that. Right over on 4th Street, there's even a plaque over there. And he wrote just a little song over there called Camptown Races, little song. But tonight we're going to sing My Old Kentucky Home. So I would like to invite the people up here, and we get our words out. And I'd like you all to stand if you want. This is how we get our standing ovation, frankly. But let's sing My Old Kentucky Home. Or everybody sing. John Deaver will lead us in this, and the brass.
Summer
Thank you. Just one remark. As you're leaving tonight, we do have a display case, being the historian, I have a display case out there of some more photos and that of Trinity, if you want to take a moment to look at those. We also, the Globe is open tonight, I'm sorry, what? Oh, the Bluegrass Band is, that's it then. The Bluegrass Band is playing at the Globe, and Peter has some final remarks.
Great. I want to thank all the artists who made this possible. A lot of work went into this, and so let's give them another round of applause. But there is one special person who made this possible, and that's Elise Hyder. And so, on behalf of these are given to Elise on behalf of the Children's Home and Trinity, and we're going to sing Happy Birthday to her down at the Globe, so we'll see you down there in a few minutes. Thank you again for coming, and come back and see us often here at Trinity. Thanks. Good night.